Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a fascinating and, let's be honest, often frustrating look at the geography of change.
hmm
We're talking about that dynamic, contentious zone where the city aggressively meets the countryside.
The front line, really.
Exactly. We're exploring urban sprawl, the rural-urban fringe, and all the infrastructure headaches that come along with
A
them.
big topic.
It is. We've got sources here that use a really great specific case study, the Stoke-on-Trent area, to define these geographical shifts.
And it's a fantastic example, actually.
Why is that?
Well, Stoke is historically a polycentric city, so it grew from multiple towns that sort of merged together.
Which makes its expansion more complicated, I'd
It
imagine.
makes it particularly complex, yeah.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to cut through the noise and give you the essential understanding of why the edge of the city is always, well, the most fiercely fought over territory.
Okay, so before we dive into the conflict, we need to get some terms straight.
We do. Two core definitions we need to lock down. First up is urban sprawl.
Right.
This is basically the physical expansion of a city, a built-up area,
Yeah.
into the surrounding, less populated rural space.
So just the city stretching its arms out.
Think of it exactly like that, just
Yeah.
continually stretching its boundaries further and further out.
And the second term?
The second one is the key battleground,
Uh,
the rural-urban fringe, or RUF for short.
the RUF.
Yeah. And our sources define this as that crucial zone of transition. It's the messy middle ground between the dense urban core and the actual countryside.
And if you remember one thing about it,
I remember this. It is characterized by intense, unrelenting competition for land. Everybody wants a piece of that fringe.
so let's unpack that. Why does a city expand in this, well, what seems like an organized way? There's a theory behind this, isn't there?
There is. The sources bring up the Burgess model as a sort of simplified framework to explain how cities change as you move outward.
The Burgess model. Okay.
At its heart, it's really a visualization. It suggests a city grows in these concentric rings, kind of like a target radiating out from the center.
So you start in the middle.
Right. You move from the dense, usually older city center through these transitional zones, and then you finally hit the residential and commuter areas right before you get to open country. It's a foundational idea.
But theory is one thing. The Stoke-on-Trent sources, they really bring this to life with hard evidence, don't they?
They really do. They let us look back at what used to be the rural-urban fringe.
Okay, so paint us a picture.
If you go back to the early 1900s, say, in the south of Stoke-on-Trent, the maps from that time show huge swaths of land that were just farmland.
So that was the edge of the city back then.
That was the edge. They were the rural-urban fringe of that era.
And now?
You compare those old maps to a modern satellite view, and the change is, well, it's dramatic. That farmland has been completely absorbed.
Absorbed how?
It's been significantly built on. We're talking housing estates, light industry, new roads. It has physically merged into the main urban area. The gray sprawl has just swallowed the green.
And that swallowing has a consequence beyond just how it looks. It's about location.
Precisely. The city didn't just stop growing. It pushed its boundary further out. So the RUF, the fringe, it couldn't stay where it was.
It had to move.
It had to physically relocate. And the sources suggest that today's rural-urban fringe is now located further out, maybe around places like Barlaston or Kiel. The city literally swallowed its old fringe and then just created a new one.
So if the 1900s fringe swallowed up farmland, what happens when today's fringe tries to swallow up current undeveloped land?
Now you're at the heart of the modern conflict.
This is where we get into the greenfield sites and the infrastructure problem.
Exactly. This is where the competition gets fierce.
Yeah.
Developers are targeting what are called greenfield sites.
And that just means land that hasn't been built on before.
And undeveloped land, yeah.
Huh.
Never been built on. And this is key because there's often perfectly good brownfield land. Old industrial sites, for instance, closer to the city center that could be used.
So why the preference for greenfield sites way out on the fringe? Is it just that they're available?
It's mainly cost and simplicity. Brownfield sites, they can be really expensive to clean up.
Right, decontamination and all that.
Exactly. You might have to clean up industrial contaminants, tear down old buildings. Yeah. It's complex. Greenfield sites on the RUF are often much cheaper to buy and, frankly, easier to build on. For a developer, it's the path of least resistance.
Okay, so you build these cheaper, simpler housing estates out on the fringe. What do those new places become?
In the vast majority of cases, they become commuter settlements.
And a commuter settlement is just what it sounds like.
Pretty much. It means the residents aren't living and working locally. The majority travel elsewhere, usually back into Stoke or Newcastle under Lyme for their jobs.
And I'm guessing they're not taking the bus.
Overwhelmingly car dependent. Public transport links in these brand new fringe areas are usually minimal or just non-existent.
And this is the point that,
Yeah.
well, it really gets local residents angry, doesn't it? This is the crunch point.
Absolutely. Think about the volume. A small development, maybe a couple hundred homes, you're still adding hundreds of extra car journeys to the local network every single morning and evening.
On roads that weren't built for it.
And that's the critical infrastructure failure. The sources detail. The local roads in these rural areas, the little lanes, the B roads, they were not originally designed to handle that kind of intense daily commuter traffic.
And we're not just talking about being stuck in a queue for a few minutes longer.
No, this creates real bottlenecks. You get historic junctions that just can't cope. It also encourages rat running.
Where people cut through tiny villages to avoid the main roads.
Exactly. Commuters get frustrated, so they divert down these tiny village lanes, sometimes right past a primary school, just to shave 5 minutes off their journey. It fundamentally changes the quality of life, the air quality, and the safety of these quiet areas.
It makes that shift from theory to reality pretty stark. So
Yeah.
let's bring this to life with some of the specific examples from the sources from North Staffordshire. We're talking about real developments on these greenfield sites at the RUF.
We are. And you can almost track the scale of it. So at the smaller end, the sources mention a modest development of 29 homes in Barlaston, a classic RUF location.
Yeah. 29 homes.
Then, a bit bigger, there's a development of 83 new homes planned for Kiel Village.
So these aren't huge city building projects, but it's a constant chipping away.
It's a relentless, continuous, house-by-house chipping away at the undeveloped land. And each one adds to that traffic load on roads designed for, tractors.
Right. But now let's pivot to the really big one, the project that is far from incremental.
We're talking about the former Kiel Golf Course.
The proposed development of 1,000 homes, that's a massive intervention.
A project of that size is a game changer. It throws all these RUF conflicts into really sharp relief. 1,000 homes. That's not just housing. That's potentially 2,000 new residents, maybe 1,500 new cars, all operating daily on that boundary.
So what's the argument for it? What are the supporters saying? Because a scheme that big has to be sold as a major benefit.
That's right. The supporters argue it's necessary for economic momentum. Their core belief is that it will help the area develop by providing housing stock. And this is the crucial part, helps attract inward investment.
Investment into what?
Specifically into the neighboring Science Park and Kiel University. The argument is that the housing is intrinsically linked to their success.
So the logic is, if you want to attract high-tech companies and top researchers, you need to have modern, quality housing for them right next door.
That's the argument, yes. In their view, this isn't sprawl for the sake of it. It's smart planning to sustain economic growth.
A very strong argument, but we know the RUF is defined by conflict, so there must be some powerful objections.
Oh, absolutely. While the sources just say some people object, their concerns link directly back to everything we've been talking about.
The traffic.
Well, beyond losing the open space itself, which is a big deal, the opposition centers heavily on that structural incompatibility. The infrastructure,
They just don't believe the roads can take it.
they argue that introducing 1,000 homes would completely overwhelm the local network, especially those feeder roads. They question whether any planned improvements, a new roundabout here or there, could possibly handle the sheer volume without causing chaos. It's an argument about local quality of life versus a regional economic ambition.
And what's fascinating here is that this kind of conflict really shows how dated some of those old theoretical models are, like Burgess.
How so?
Well, the RUF isn't just a simple, slowly expanding ring anymore, is it? It's a target for these huge, politically driven projects that seem to prioritize profit over local capacity.
That is an excellent point. The Burgess model assumed this kind of organic growth. But today, sprawl is often driven by deliberate planning decisions. And since the land is cheaper and, arguably easier to get permission for on the greenfield RUF, that's where the pressure lands.
And you end up with these huge, sudden injections of population.
Like 1,000 homes, yeah. It just shocks the existing fragile infrastructure.
So the conversation really has to move beyond just definitions.
It has to. The RUF isn't just a line on a map. It's the place where the economic priorities of the city clash head-on with the residential realities of the countryside.
It's the Wild West of planning permission.
That's a good way to put it. It's where the future shape of the landscape gets decided.
Okay, so this has shown us that urban sprawl isn't some abstract concept. It's a physical force you can see. measured in new housing estates, lost green space, and for the daily commuter, chronic traffic on old roads. So what's the ultimate synthesis here, tying the history of Stoke with this fierce debate over a golf course?
I think the key takeaway is simple but profound. Urban sprawl is the visible result of intense land competition. It's a relentless physical shift that fundamentally changes the character of a place.
And it forces a redefinition.
It forces a constant redefinition of what rural actually means. The idea of the countryside isn't fixed, it's an ever-moving target, and it's driven by how economically desirable its land is. The moment that land becomes accessible and affordable, the fringe moves.
That unrelenting pressure leaves us with a final thought for you to consider as you navigate the edges of your own city. If the rural-urban fringe is a zone defined by that fierce competition, how long is it until the areas we currently think of as definitively rural just aren't seen that way by the next generation?
And what does that constant outward push mean for planning our future infrastructure?
Exactly. If the boundary is always moving, can we ever truly plan a fixed road system? Or do we have to start planning for the inevitability of perpetual expansion?
Something to think about.
Definitely something to consider next time you're waiting at a brand new roundabout on an old country lane.